Hello guys, welcome to Truth in Time. Tonight we step back into the fog-choked streets of Whitechapel in 1888, a place of narrow alleys, crowded rooms, and hard daily survival. This is a story that has echoed through time. Mystery, sorrow, and a long list of unanswered questions. We'll approach it carefully, not to sensationalize, but to understand. We'll look at what records show, what contemporaries reported, and how the events shaped the city and its people. Above all, we'll remember the individuals whose lives were changed and the community that carried the burden of fear. Whitechapel in the late 19th century was a district of contrasts. Bustling commerce and brutal poverty lived side by side. Steam and smoke from factories mixed with the salt tang from the Thames. Immigrants, casual laborers, small business owners, and families lived in cramped rooms. Life was precarious. In such conditions, rumor moved quickly and safety was fragile. Poor sanitation, limited social services, and a rigid class system made the area particularly vulnerable. Understanding this social landscape helps explain how ordinary events could quickly become extraordinary in the public mind. In the summer of 1888, a series of deaths appeared in police files and newspaper columns. The stories were disturbing enough to capture London's attention and before long the entire country's. The press seized on a dramatized name, Jack the Ripper, and the nickname spread. Letters claiming responsibility circulated. People across classes watched the headlines nervously. But it's crucial to remember that behind every headline was a person with a family, a past, and a network of relationships. Our job is to respect that human reality while carefully examining the facts. Police work in the Victorian era was methodical in its own terms, but it lacked tools we take for granted today. Detectives relied primarily on witness testimony, careful note-taking, and practical inspection of scenes. There was no DNA, no instant communication, no centralized database. Telegraphs, ink-stained ledgers, and inquest minutes formed the trail that historians now follow. Under intense public pressure, Metropolitan police officers worked long hours, interrogating neighbors, canvassing streets, and compiling witness statements that would later become the backbone of every reconstruction we attempt today. Eyewitness accounts were plentiful and often conflicted. Some local residents described seeing a man moving through the misty alleys late at night. Others heard hurried footsteps or saw an unlit figure pause and move on. Human memory is fallible, especially in frightening or poorly lit situations. Street lamps cast long, unreliable shadows. Fog masked details. These contradictions were a major challenge for investigators then and are a central reason the case remains unresolved now. Sorting reliable testimony from rumor was, and remains, a detective's most delicate work. Social attitudes influenced the investigation and the public's response. Many of the women involved worked in precarious trades and lived on society's margins. At the time, such individuals were often stigmatized, which affected press tone and occasionally the resources devoted to inquiries. Today we can say very clearly that every life mattered and that stigma should never reduce our concern or our demand for justice. Reflecting on social context helps us see these events through a more compassionate modern lens. A complicating dimension was the wave of letters received by police and newspapers. Some letters claimed responsibility and used the infamous moniker. Others tried to taunt or mislead. The media seized them and printed them, amplifying public fear and often skewing the flow of information. Historians still debate which, if any, of these communications were authentic. Many were likely hoaxes written by individuals who sought notoriety. The letters underscore a broader truth about crisis moments. Misinformation can travel as fast as fact. Jurisdictional friction added another real-world complication. Different police units, overlapping borders, and competing administrative priorities sometimes hindered rapid cooperation. In an era before unified national crime systems, these structural divisions could slow the flow of critical information. The situation provides a lesson for modern viewers. Coordinated public safety efforts and clear channels of communication become essential when a community experiences repeated shocks. Across months and years, a number of suspects were proposed, from local residents to visitors and figures whose involvement attracted public attention. Investigators built theories from witness reports, travel patterns, work histories, and the few physical clues available. Over time, the list of candidates grew and shifted as new researchers weighed the evidence. Modern analysts still re-examine occupational records, handwriting samples, and geographic footprints. Yet no single theory has gained unanimous acceptance. That ambiguity is uncomfortable, but it also reminds us of the limits of proof. The events in Whitechapel spurred civic action as well as fear. Citizens organized night patrols and neighborhood watches. Volunteers walked busy thoroughfares, and mutual aid groups worked to support families in need. Local charities and women's groups provided beds, meals, and small protections for those exposed most directly to danger. These grassroots responses show how communities reach for solidarity when institutions struggle. They also remind us that collective compassion often grows in the shadow of crisis. The press of 1888 played a complex role. Newspapers informed the public about safety measures and potential threats, yet sensational reporting intensified anxiety and sometimes misdirected investigations. Rival papers competed for dramatic copy. Headlines prioritized shock value. For modern storytellers and viewers, this dual nature of media coverage is a cautionary tale about responsibility. Reporting must inform without inflaming, and audiences should seek reliable sources amid sensational accounts. Today, historians approach the case with methods and resources unavailable in 1888. Archival documents, coroner reports, census records, and municipal files allow researchers to reconstruct timelines in meticulous detail. Digital databases make cross-referencing names and addresses faster, enabling scholars to map movements, employment patterns, and social connections with new clarity. Even with these advances, the record is incomplete. Some questions may remain forever open, and humility is essential in any definitive claim. The Ripper events also left a legacy in policing and social policy. Public pressure for safety and transparency prompted improvements in record-keeping and public communication. Municipal authorities invested more in street lighting, on patrols, and reformers renewed calls for housing and health improvements. In this way, a tragic sequence of events contributed to institutional changes that later improved public safety and urban living conditions. The painful truth is that public crises sometimes catalyze long-term reforms. Popular culture did what it often does. It repackaged the story, turning facts and fragments into legend. Books, plays, and later films amplified certain elements while inventing others. Walking tours now draw curious visitors to the same lanes where these events unfolded, blending fact with experience. While cultural retellings can keep memory alive, they can also overshadow the lived reality of the people who lived through those months. Responsible storytelling resists the urge to prioritize sensational myth over documented fact. It is important to place the victims at the center of our narrative. Remembering names, family histories, and personal circumstances helps restore dignity to those overshadowed by headlines. Museums and memorial efforts have worked to tell fuller stories using surviving records to help us imagine daily routines, economic pressures, and the social networks that shaped lives. Honoring their humanity reminds us why careful historical work matters. Why does this mystery continue to grip us? Perhaps unsolved cases tap into deeper anxieties about safety, justice, and the unknown. The Ripper case poses unsettling questions about vulnerability in urban life and the capacity of institutions to protect the most exposed citizens. It invites us to ask not just who, but why. Why societies sometimes fail their most vulnerable, and how communities can respond better in the future. Modern scholarship ranges widely. Some researchers emphasize social and structural factors that created vulnerability. Others seek to name a perpetrator using travel records, handwriting comparisons, or contextual evidence. Rigorous work follows clear standards. It relies on verifiable documents, contextual interpretation, and a transparent accounting of uncertainty. Enthusiasm for a tidy solution must be tempered by respect for the evidentiary limits. Ethical storytelling matters here. Avoiding graphic detail is not the same as avoiding truth. It is a deliberate choice to focus on verified facts, human dignity, and meaningful analysis. That ethical stance produces more thoughtful engagement and helps prevent the exploitation of suffering for cheap thrills. We choose to illuminate rather than luridly repeat. When we look back at this case, we also see a snapshot of late Victorian London, a city in transition, grappling with migration, industrialization, and rapid social change. Those structural dynamics shaped everyday life and influenced both the events themselves and the responses to them. Understanding that wider context makes the story less about a single monstrous figure and more about a society under strain. Finally, the unresolved quality of the case invites ongoing inquiry rather than definitive closure. New documents occasionally surface, new analytical methods appear, and fresh perspectives offer refined interpretations. Historians proceed cautiously, aware that the past resists tidy endings. Each generation re-examines the record and asks new questions, mindful of the human lives behind the paperwork. Thank you for spending this time with us at Truth in Time. If you found this careful exploration meaningful, please subscribe to the channel and share this video. Not to sensationalize, but to support thoughtful, humane history. Tell us in the comments which angle you'd like next. A deep dive into the period's investigative methods, a profile of the neighborhood's daily life, or a closer look at the contemporary press. Your suggestions guide our future episodes. Stay curious and compassionate. History lives in people's stories, not merely in headlines. Goodbye for now. We'll return to uncover another chapter from the past.